Today's video is brought to you by Tokyo Catch. Stick around to find out more about them later on. Hello everyone, we're back at it again, and this time we're looking at dumb perks for killers in Dead by Daylight. We've already done the Survivor video, so if you're interested in seeing those ones, the link will be in the description, but this time we're looking at killer perks. And there are a lot more useless killer perks than there are Survivor perks. We're going to start things off with Dead Man Switch. Now, this perk activates every time you hook the obsession, and only the obsession, and the perk activates for 45 seconds. During this 45 seconds, anytime a survivor stops repairing a generator, that generator becomes blocked until this 45 seconds is up. Keep in mind that this counter starts the second you hook someone, even if no gens are blocked yet. The reason this perk is so bad is because it's just a bad version of Thrilling Tremors, a Ghostface perk, where it also blocks generators when a survivor stops repairing it, but it applies to picking up any survivor instead of just the obsession. Although the duration is shorter at 16 seconds, it is far more useful. This list is going to have a few perks that a decent amount of the community thinks are quite good, but when you get into the numbers, they're actually quite bad, and the first one of which is going to be Dying Light. One that I actually thought was good for quite a while. So how Dying Light works is anytime you hook someone that is not the obsession, you gain 1 stack, and each stack slows down generator repair and healing by 3%, up to a maximum of 33% at 11 stacks. And so far it doesn't seem too bad, in fact it actually seems quite desirable. But here's when the ifs and buts come into play, absolutely annihilating this perk's value. First of all, this debuff only applies to anyone who is not the obsession. So already just from that, we've literally lost 25% of this perk's value. And at this point I think it goes from a fairly consistent slowdown to mainly just a snowballing perk for when you're already winning, just to win a bit harder. But wait, there's more. Not only is the obsession completely unaffected by any of the downsides to this perk, this player actually gets a buff. They are granted 33% faster unhook and healing speed for the entire game. And at that point, it is completely and utterly not worth using. The positives do not outweigh the negatives, and to be honest, even if it didn't have these downsides, the fact that you have to stack it up and it takes such a high amount of stacks to get to a decent value means a lot of the gens are already going to be done before you get to a decent degree of slowdown, which means it's only going to be affecting 2 gens really. It's just not worth it. Tokyo Catch is, in my opinion, the best Japanese online crane game out there. With a beautiful and clean website design, Tokyo Catch lets you experience the thrill of a Japanese arcade straight from your own home. Control the crane straight from your browser or with the free mobile app and win amazing prizes, including officially licensed anime figures and merchandise. Pro tip: sometimes nudging the items off the edge is better than going for a direct pickup. All prizes get delivered straight to your home with free shipping once a week. Currently, Tokyo Catch is doing a daily login reward, granting you tickets to play for free every day. People who sign up using my link in the video description get 5 free tickets, so there's absolutely nothing to lose. Next up, we'll bounce back to something that is quite hard to argue, and that is going to be Insidious. By standing still for 2 seconds, you gain the undetectable status effect. It's just counterintuitive to actually winning on killer. Now obviously you will see basement bubbers face camping with it, but that's just as a meme really. It's not going to work at high levels of play, and outside of that, it doesn't have much use at all. Speaking of memes, and in fact a perk that could be seen alongside Insidious quite often, Monstrous Shrine. Everyone memes this perk, and for good reason. For those of you that don't know what this perk does, if you hook any survivor in the basement, their hook timer goes down 9% faster. It does have 2 additional bonuses of self-unhooking being less common and self-unhook penalties being higher, but they don't actually change anything in a meaningful way. According to the wiki, each hook stage will end up going 5 seconds faster. They could probably make this like 33% instead of 9%, and it would still be bad because it only applies to basement hooks. Up next is Overwhelming Presence, and just to clarify, this is the item perk, not the skill check perk. At face value, this doesn't seem too bad. At 100% value, it doubles the speed in which survivors' items run out when they are using them, within the killer's terror radius. I think the only issue with it is just how easy it is to outright counter it entirely by simply letting go of right mouse button until the killer is no longer near you. That will save the survivor their toolbox and or medkit, and if they're using a flashlight, you can just counter it by looking at a wall or Lightborn. But I think really the final nail in the coffin is just the fact that Franklin's Demise is just a much better all-rounder perk for items. I mentioned earlier that there are going to be some perks that most people think are good, and here is another one, Sloppy Butcher. Sloppy Butcher applies Hemorrhage and Mangled when you basic attack a survivor. Now, no one cares about Hemorrhage because that's just bleeding and we're fine with tracking already. Mangled is where people see the value in this perk, and it makes survivors take longer to heal. And I think a lot of people drastically overestimate how much time that this actually costs survivors. This increases the amount of time it takes to heal by 4 seconds. That's it. Not 4 seconds per stack, just 4 seconds total. And the thing is, a lot of the time, good survivors aren't going to care about staying injured and they're just going to repair gens anyway, so that 4 seconds may never actually come into fruition. So because of this, a lot of people turn to adding Thanatophobia into their build as well, which will then punish people for not healing. Which is another can of worms because Thanatophobia is also a bad perk due to it just having way too low values. Although Sloppy Butcher and Thanatophobia are very consistent perks, their values are far too low to be actually worth using. Alright, back to another perk that you can't really argue with, and that is Territorial Imperative. Jesus Christ, this perk has no reason to exist. If a survivor enters the basement, you can see their aura for a measly 3 seconds. But only if you are 32 meters away from the basement, and it has a 20-second cooldown. So you can only use this perk if you're too far away from the basement to actually get good value from it, and it has a cooldown just in case this perk has too much value. Another bad perk would be Unrelenting. The cooldown of your missed attacks is decreased by 30%. 30% is actually pretty high by killer perk standards, but the thing is, it's 30% of like less than 1 second, so the number is already tremendously low. And additionally, you don't get punished enough for missing a swing as killer to even warrant this perk being used. On top of that, it's not that often you're going to be missing a swing as killer with how big the attack cone is, so this perk is just a bit pointless really. Next up are some perks that could be good, but their values are just simply far too low. There are a lot of perks like this on killer, but this one is going to be Brutal Strength, which allows you to break pallets, walls, and kick generators 20% faster. This perk used to be absolutely core to killers, like you were actually hard trolling if you didn't go into a match with this perk. But then they buffed how quickly killers break pallets at base speed, and then they nerfed this perk preemptively to account for that change. Preemptive nerfs are normally a smart thing when it comes to game balance, however in this scenario it wasn't, because they failed to account for the fact that since this perk is percentage based, a smaller base value means that this percentage value is already lower. So therefore, buffing base pallet speed was a nerf to this perk, but then by reducing the percentage further, the perk's effects are so tiny that it achieves next to nothing and is not worth using. That being said, we can take it into our own hands to buff this perk by equipping Fire Up, which does the same thing plus faster window vault speed. These effects do combine, giving you a noticeable and decent pallet break speed. But wasting 2 whole perk slots for something that 1 singular perk should be doing is never worthwhile. Disagree with any of my picks or have any more perks that you think should be on this list? Let me know in the comments section down below and explain why you think so. If you make a point without explaining it, I'm not going to understand why you said that, so definitely explain why. That being said, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you live on Twitch.